And welcome again to another John's Media World Extra. Today, we're going to talk about baby Christian Trump. I have a few cuts on this. Christian nationalist pastor Landon Schott insists that Trump respects God and respects pastors, and thus he deserves grace because he's still a baby Christian. He can criticize the Pope, but he can do it because he's a baby Christian. Let's listen.
What I really appreciate about President Trump is that he has been, what, in my opinion, the most pro-faith president in my lifetime.
No.
Right? And here's what I appreciate is every time I'm around him, he's like, we need more faith in America. And I know so many people are caught up in like, well, he says this and he does this. I'm like,
yes.
Okay, well, let's say he is a baby Christian for a second, okay? How come you have so much grace with other baby Christians and you don't have it with him? Why are you fine with Justin Bieber's and all these other celebrities and all these other people getting saved and they're like, hey, they're just learning and everybody else has a learning curve, but he doesn't have a learning curve. I mean, it's amazing how fast people on social media that probably live in their mom's basement are so quick to say, like, he's not acting like a Christian when, like, no, you're not acting like a Christian. Like, the sin in your life, the plank in your eye, I mean, come on, God. Huh? And so, but what I love about President Trump is that he respects God. He respects pastors. He'll drop curse words and then apologize to Franklin Graham for the curse word that he knows he's in a room full of pastors. He's like, sorry guys, but you need to stay on your toes. You know, it's like he's a unique individual, but he has a respect for God. Yeah. And he has a respect for pastors. And I believe that he's for churches.
Sure he is, and he's not for certain societies which he has threatened to wipe off the face of the earth. I get it. I think somebody who is a Christian living in the basement is not quite as impactful as this supposed Christian who wants to destroy a society, everybody in it, citizens, government. That's not a good Christian thing to want to do. And by the way, I didn't know this, but doing a little research, they've been saying this about Trump for a long time. Baby Christian. I had never heard the term before. All right, here's a clip from Piers Morgan's Uncensored where Tim Miller confronts controversial Christian pastor to Pete Hegseth, Doug Wilson.
Last thing, I've been a quote-unquote pastor for just shy of 50 years. And so I'd like to know how much longer I have to go before I become a real pastor.
Well, you have to follow the teachings of Jesus Christ, probably, if you want to be a real pastor. I mean, you can call yourself whatever the hell you want, Doug. I'm just going to call you Doug. I'm kind of tired of you being called pastor, but, you know, if you just want to...
I think we can afford him.
Look, you're out there.
We can afford him.
You hate everybody. You attack black people, gay people, immigrants, Jews. Like, all you do is spread hate. Your book that you've got behind there is you know, talking about how much you love bad words. Look, if you want to teach like this kind of fake Christianity, that's fine. You can do that. You know, if you want. No, I've not read your book. I'm very happy to have not read your book. But if you want to do this kind of vice signaling Christianity, where we're going to do Christian vices,
on what it's about.
Well, I've seen enough of your material on social media that it doesn't really require anymore. I mean, it doesn't. It's not like there's a ton of deep thought that's going behind it.
No,
that requires
I thought
further study.
As the show started out, I thought we were supposed to refrain from attacking religious leaders.
You attacked the Pope.
Well, I've no problem. Listen, real quick, Pastor. I have no problem attacking wolves in sheep's clothing. I have no problem attacking a man who wrote that American slavery was mutually harmonious between the slave master and the slave. That's you. I have no problem attacking a man who proudly says he wants to do away with the 19th Amendment, which gave women the right to vote. I have no problem attacking a man like yourself who sits here incoherently supporting an incoherent, unwinnable, illegal war in Iran. I have no problem attacking you, a man who is the religious leader of Pete Hegseth, a man who's a cosplay crusader who's leading some type of crusade, probably you put him on, as a Secretary of Defense, getting Americans and innocent civilians killed. I wish you would be a better Christian. I wish you would open up the Bible. I wish you would meet the Jesus that I met when I went to an all-boys Jesuit Catholic high school. The Jesus that took care of the sick, that took care of the poor, that welcomed the immigrant, that welcomed the marginalized, that helped them. But instead, you've used Jesus as a mascot for for, I don't know, your white Christian supremacy, your cruelty, your misogyny. And I'm so glad that people are finally waking up to your cruelty and to the idiocy of your star disciple, Pete Hegseth, who keeps messing up and literally does not read the Bible and quotes Pulp Fiction. Just sit with them. Maybe both of you could read the Constitution, read the Bible, and just take a break, Pastor. Just take a break.
Good idea.
Do less.
Yeah,
All right,
just
Pastor, your response.
Yeah. Oh,
Just
this is great.
incidentally, we know that Jesus was not a socialist because he could actually feed people.
Huh?
Wonderful.
got.
Great response.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that is just one golden moment. That is Doug Wilson, personal pastor and advisor to Pete Hegseth, who's going to war with everybody. All right, now let's get back to the baby Christian idea, because that's one of the advisors, one of the people involved in our administration. Here's another person involved in this administration, and this is Lance Wallnau. He is also talking to Trump, but he's also defending Trump and still calling him a baby Christian. Let's listen.
The guy can't win for losing, is what we say up in New York.
Right.
So they got a complaint because he didn't answer a question in Air Force One about, are you certain of your salvation? Well, I hope I've done enough good works to get there. And immediately the Twitter sphere starts dumping on Paula White. What's she doing? Doesn't he understand how to get to heaven? Blah, blah, blah. So then he goes and it says, okay, let me go to the other extreme. I'm a lot like Jesus. Look at me here. And it's like, no, you don't do that either. The guy, remember this, the man is saved, but he's anointed with a kind of almost like
What?
a gift of wisdom for being able to navigate America through the crises it's in. But he's a baby Christian. And he's like, at times, he's 2 a.m. in the morning. I always look, when does he post it? 2 a.m. He's cranky. He's irritated. He's on the phone. And then he's having a fight with Pope Leo, who he knows is meeting with Axelrod and meeting with Democrats, and then using his Vatican to critique the immigration issue in America. And he never said anything about the nuclear threat of Iran, but the Pope has a comment about any kind of violence that's there. And Trump basically said, that's it. I'm actually doing more for Jesus in the church than you are, knucklehead. And in my opinion, he pictured himself as doing more than the other guy who's supposed to be in charge of the Catholic Church. But it backfired because this isn't his line of country. He doesn't quite know how to meme because of the hypersensitivities of Christians in particular, which is ironic.
That's right. You know, the Pope should learn how to meme. Huh? That's the problem. What's wrong with the Pope? Anyway, crazy stuff. Baby Christian, that's the excuse. He's learning baby steps. Poor Trump. He'll get the hang of it one of these days. Of course, going to war, and it's a preemptive war. We saw that with George W. Bush. Now we've got it with Trump. Maybe they would have had the bomb. Maybe not. Probably never use it because of mutual destruction. But still, we had an agreement under Obama. He wrecked it, and now he's going back to a lot of the same data points of that agreement, and he'll probably call it his own agreement, if that ever happens. But of course, we've heard that it's in an agreement, negotiating with the agreement. It's maybe they're talking, maybe they're not talking. It's crazy stuff. And it never made any sense. Now, let's keep on this religious track here. Let's go to Paula White. We heard her name mentioned. She's part of the faith office in the White House. And I think this should say it all for you.
We choose things that we think should sound right, should act right according. And they even say about well, he's not presidential. Thank goodness.
Yeah.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
Thank goodness. And I mean that with all due respect.
Thank goodness.
Because in other words, he's not a polished politician. In other words, he's authentically, whether people like it or not, has been raised up by God, because God says that he raises up and places all people in places of authority. It is God that raises up a king. It is God that sets one down. And so when you fight against the plan of God, you're fighting against the hand of God.
That's the faith office leader, Paula White. She's truly faithful to Trump, all right? But consider this. It occurred to me a little after I watched that. You could also acknowledge that God raised up Obama, not as a king, Biden as a king, right? Clinton as a king. It's that hand of God that raised those individuals up. But for Trump, God raised Trump up to be king. Let that sink in. Well, I made an interesting discovery as I was going through social media. I found somebody that is really, really fantastic. Great points of view and opinions. It is Dr. Jessica Knurick. I believe that's how she says her last name. And she has a whole bunch of different commentary on all parts of healthcare. With RFK Jr. out there, she's got a lot to say. We're going to take a look at the program WIC right now, and that is the Special Supplemental Nutrition Program for Women, Infants, and Children. I think you're going to like what she says. This is what I would call a web wisdom, somebody you discover out there that really is telling it like it is. She's great.
I made a video yesterday about the Trump administration requesting large cuts to the WIC program, particularly the part of the program that helps babies and young kids get access to fruits and vegetables. Sue, whose bio reads, "God is good all the time God is good," sent me a DM that said, they need to get jobs, pay for fruit and berries, and not beer and cigs. Berries are a fruit, Sue, but more importantly, the video was about programs helping to feed infants, children under 5, pregnant postpartum moms, and seniors. Feels like something God would care about, Sue, feeding the children. I'm also really tired of this narrative that people should just get jobs and then they won't need nutrition assistance. Millions of full-time workers rely on nutrition assistance, Sue. I bet you think you're super supportive of the military. Did you know that about a quarter of active duty service members are considered food insecure? Lots of military families rely on nutrition assistance, including WIC. Perhaps, Sue, we should ask ourselves, well, first, why someone who makes such a public show of her faith seems to act in direct opposition to its most basic teachings, but then, why a country with this much wealth makes working families, military families, pregnant moms, little kids, and seniors struggle this hard for basic nutrition, and why we have a president enriching himself, his family, and his billionaire friends while trying to cut the programs that actually help the American people.
That is Dr. Jessica Knurick, and we'll be hearing more from her. She has great commentary. We'll be hearing in the not-too-distant future about MAHA, Make America Healthy Again, and DEI in medicine, how it actually is detrimental to the health of certain minority groups. I want to bring up guns at this point because I've had a lot of discussions about guns, been talking about it for at least 45 years now. And the discussion hasn't gotten any further than it was maybe 45 years ago. Now, I have a mega friend in Milwaukee, carries a gun, born again, and has had many, many moments where he has repeated over and over and over again, it's not the gun, it's the person. And what they're insinuating, of course, is that we can reform every person in the country to accept the safety of guns. Try that on for size. Not going to happen. Human nature is not going to allow something like that, right? It's not going to happen. But that's what they're waiting for. It's not the guns. If we could just change the attitude of every person in America, then everything will be okay. Kind of ridiculous, very ridiculous, but here's something that kind of occurred to me on this. Of course, they don't like gun laws, right? But laws teach people what the attitude maybe should or could be in the country when those laws are put into effect. If it's a law, then we'll think about it. Well, why did they put that law in there? We'll think about it some more and say, hey, yeah, it makes sense. You know, it saves lives, right? Well, what about the 10 Commandments? Those are God's laws. And there are 10 of them. And we're supposed to live our life according to those laws. Well, what about man's laws, about guns? Can't we learn a lesson about guns from those laws? And it may change people's attitudes toward firearms. All right, we've got a real problem here in Wisconsin. We send individuals off to the Congress, and they make horrible laws for us. We had Michael Gallagher, who's no longer there, but he managed to ban TikTok. All right. And I don't know who it was that wrote up the law about THC and hemp. I don't know who wrote that up, but they've got to be from Wisconsin. Well, Bryan Steil is a representative that replaced Paul Ryan. They almost look alike. And he has come up with another way to suppress the vote. All right. And this is really interesting stuff because we've got the SAVE Act, right? That went through the House, and that's going to make voting much better, and people will have a lot more confidence in our elections. Ridiculous. All of these stupid laws, all these ways to save voting or the election really makes people unsure about the elections. All right. But anyway, Bryan Steil has a separate bill, and he's pushing this one. Now, here is what that bill is all about. This should end voting once and for all. Let's watch.
In Ohio, 62 non-citizens were found on the state's voter rolls with the help of the SAVE database. In Iowa, an illegal alien was working as the superintendent for one of the state's largest school systems. He was registered to vote in the state of Maryland and was mailed a ballot. In Kansas, the SAVE database helped identify a non-citizen who has been charged with illegal voting in 3 elections. It actually also turns out that he was a mayor of a city in Kansas. And just 3 days ago, a non-citizen was charged in Minnesota for voting in the 2024 election. These are real stories, and current federal law is part of the problem. The National Voter Registration Act and the Help America Vote Act set baseline standards for voter registrations back in 1993 and 2002, respectively. However, we've identified serious flaws in these statutes that are actually weakening election integrity.
Okay, I don't think so, because I think he just made the case that the current laws in place have caught those individuals, right? It seems like the system is working just fine. We don't need any more election laws to add integrity for people to feel confident in the elections. Help us all, please. I'm going nuts just thinking about all this stuff. So I looked up what's in his bill, the one he's pushing right now. It's the MEGA bill, not MAGA bill, but the MEGA bill. It's Make Elections Great Again Act. Oh, God, here we go. Listen to this. It'll impose a strict photo ID requirement to vote. Okay, all right. We've had that for a while here in Wisconsin. Create a centralized voter surveillance system in every state, which probably will be shared with the federal government. Mandate constant voter roll purges. Gutting the motor voter law that expanded access to voter registration. Why would they do that? Right? It expanded access to voter registration. They want to do away with the Motor Voter Act. Huh? But as I mentioned, they want to purge the rolls. And that is what I thought was going to happen probably more often in the future. Now, this is just kind of a proposal, but later on, maybe 2 years, 3 years, 5 years from now, they'll want to purge the rolls after every election, start over, have everybody re-enroll, just to make it more difficult. After all, I mean, isn't it worth a little effort? All right, it goes on. Bar states from counting ballots that arrive after Election Day. Ban universal mail voting, in which states mail a ballot to all registered voters. Don't know why. You know, the postal system has been pretty accurate and pretty reliable. Bar the federal government for voter registration by outside groups. We don't want any help. And unleash lawsuits against election officials all at once. All at once. That's crazy. Some Republicans will try to tell you this is to make elections safe and keep illegals from voting. First, illegals are not a thing. We're talking about people. But this, again, is Bryan Steil. This is the extra act that he is pushing at this point. Again, Make Elections Great Again act. Please, will these people please go away? Please. All right, I think we've packed enough stuff, idiocracy, into this particular episode. We'll have more tomorrow, obviously, sadly. We'll see you again. Hold on for dear life.